All right, I have started the recording. This record is for the CSRP101.12, the mock hearing assignment. And my name is Yichen. My group partner is Dan. So for the first part, I will be played as the RSAIC, and Mr. Dan will play as the client. So we will start the first part now. Ms. Lopez, can you please explain to us the details that led you to coming to Canada?
Well, I came to Canada in October 2018 from El Salvador. My husband was very abusive to me and threatening me. He was seeing other women. And at one point, he actually said he wanted me out of the home because he wanted his new girlfriend to come in. I got pregnant with another man's child at one point that I was seeing. And I was afraid that if he found out, he would hurt both of us. So I came to Canada secretly so I could have my baby in safety. And I wanted to go back and be with my other children.
Okay, I'm really sorry to hear that. Can you tell us more about your relationship with your husband?
Well, we met back in 1999 and we got married in 2005. We have two children, Gustavo, who's 19, and Lucia, who's 12. I think our marriage was okay because for the most of our marriage, Carlos was working in Uruguay. He would go for a long time. In fact, for 7 years, he would go and work over there. We would visit him every once in a while. But because we weren't together for long periods of time, it wasn't so bad. But then he came back for a year, and then in that time, things just started to go really bad. Around 2014, Carlos started being angry with me. He was having affairs. I found that out. And he would always yell at me. And eventually he started to physically hurt me. He would threaten to beat me up and even threaten to kill me if I ever left him. Carlos, he left El Salvador and went back to Uruguay at one point because he was here for that 1 year. And then I found out that he was living with another woman because he posted it on Facebook.
Okay, so can you give us some more details of the abuse you experienced?
So in 2017, when Carlos came back, I didn't even know he was coming. He started making death threats to me and accusing me of being unfaithful, which is kind of crazy because I know that he's living with somebody. And at that time, I was not unfaithful to him. He was threatening me a lot. He was beating me up. He was kicking me. And I had to actually get away to escape through one of my neighbors. As I said before, that's when I found out. I also found out he had lots of girlfriends behind my back. But every time he left back to Uruguay, things quieted down. Towards the end, while he was in Uruguay, he contacted me, stayed in touch by phone or by text. And I think you have a copy. We sent in a copy of the text where he's threatening to kill me and to cut my head off and things. But his last few texts were, I have to leave my home because he wanted to bring his new woman to live here. From that time, I never went to visit him in Uruguay ever again.
I see. So at this time, we want to refer to the exhibit of the chatting history from the Carlos. We can see that he said, I quote, "I'm gonna cut your legs off so you can't run away again." Did you call the police, and how did they react?
Well, we did. We called the police several times. But police in El Salvador, they don't care. They don't care about women. I remember my son Gustavo tried calling the police, but when they came, his brother told him that, listen, it's a family dispute, and they didn't do anything. People know the police in El Salvador. They know that they don't care about women. They don't care about violence. They don't care if women are murdered. It's just, you need to stay home and listen to your husbands or your boyfriends. They don't care.
So at this time, we want to refer to the World Report 2019 by HRW, and I quote, "Security forces have been largely ineffective in protecting the population. And regarding the government accountability, while impunity for government abuse and corruption continue to be the norm," end quote. Did you try to go to another city?
Well, El Salvador is not very big. It's a small country, and no matter where I go, Carlos will find me. He has said he will find me. He actually tried locating our son one time when Gustavo went missing, and he was easily able to find him. So I know I'm not safe no matter where I go. There's just the police aren't going to help us. I wouldn't have any support network, and I'd be looking over my shoulder every step of the way because he can find me.
What about the families or friends? Did you reach out to them?
Yeah, my sister Emily, on a few occasions, my church, but there wasn't much that they could do, and when Carlos found out, it just made things worse. So my thought was just be quiet and avoid him, and maybe he'll go back to Uruguay. I know my sister gave a letter explaining what she had seen and heard. I even reached out to my priest, Juan Andres, and he saw the bruises on me. He even wrote a letter again that we submitted. Um, he saw how abusive he was to me right in his face. He saw this. And he was warned that if they interfere, that he would kill me.
Yes. At this time, we want to refer to the evidence of affidavits of Emily Garcia, and I quote, "I have witnessed the punching and the squeezing marks on my sister Maria's body. It is very common in our country that men do not treat their wives well, and the police is also of not much help. He has also been abusive to his children. My sister suffered mental, physical, and emotional trauma when she was in El Salvador, and if she continued to live in El Salvador, her life could be in danger." And I also want to quote the affidavits of the Juan Andres from the church. "Mr. Lopez was very uncooperative with us, and he kicked us out of the house and threatened to not to come again," end quote. It sounds like you went through some difficult times. What made you decide to come to Canada?
Well, while I was financially independent, Carlos stopped. He stopped even helping. He wasn't giving us any money whatsoever. And, there was a time there where we were separated and it was fine. And it was, aside from the threats. But during all this hardship, my husband's cousin, Miguel, used to call me. He used to see how I was doing and provided me with some support. And it was because he knew what was going on with my husband and being on my children. So we started to have a bit of a relationship, and he was good to me. He was nice to me, and as crazy as things are, in June of 2018, I got pregnant. I was so scared because I knew that if my husband found out about this, he would act on his threats to find out um, who got me pregnant. And if he knew that it was Miguel, oh my God, I was so afraid of that. I just knowing him, I thought that it would be important for me to leave so I could take care of my pregnancy and have my baby. And that's when we came to Canada. I came to Canada, and unfortunately, when I stopped off at the hospital, they sent the information to my home.
Does your husband know about your baby and your relationship with Miguel?
I think so. Carlos came back to El Salvador in February 2019, and he brought his other woman to live with him in our home. He knew I wasn't there anymore. When he saw my sister taking care of my children, he asked her where I was. My sister wouldn't say anything. He didn't believe her, and he kicked her out of the home with my children and threatened even to hurt her if she ever came around again. This is his children. After my baby was born in 2019, the plan was always to go back to El Salvador. He wasn't there when I left, and the plan was to go back and with my newborn and have pick get my other two children, and then we could figure out what was our next step. But it was always about getting safely having my baby, and we did, and I did. Her name's Rosa, and she's a beautiful little girl.
Does your husband know where you live now?
Well, like I said, I think the hospital sent a notice over there, and he knows I'm in Canada. He started sending me threatening text messages and voice messages on WhatsApp, telling me that he would find me no matter where I go, because again, El Salvador is a hard place, a small place. He threatened to cut my legs off when I showed up, and also that he would cut off my head. Who says these things? He's crazy.
And how is your relationship now with Miguel?
I don't know. I stopped hearing from him. He disappeared. I'm so afraid that my husband found out and did something to him, but I have no way of knowing. I really hope he's okay, but it's very unusual because we had something real. So that just makes me even more afraid for my life and the life of my children.
So why do you want to claim refugee protection in Canada?
Well, I mean, I've told you a little bit about my story. I'm very afraid for myself and the safety of my children. There's no protection for women in El Salvador who complain about abuse from their husbands. Going to the police just makes it worse. Telling your friends makes it worse because they think that they control you. And the more that they try to control you, the more threatening they are. And, I honestly think that he will find me and kill me in El Salvador. And I worry about my other two children there. I need to be able to take care of my family. And I felt that after I'd come to Canada, the intention was always to go back home. But after he found out where I was, after he found out I had another baby from another man, I think that if he sees me, I think he will kill me.
Okay, at this time, we want to refer to the evidence of a confidential report from the school counselor, and I quote, the interview Gustavo Lopez. He attempted to hurt himself once in school, after which he was referred to the counselor. His father is very abusive and has been beating him since he was a small child, and often this is very severe beating. So Gustav tried to commit suicide after his father's beating. And we also want to refer to the World Report 2019 HRW, and I quote, the child abuse is widespread in El Salvador, end quote. Okay, so this is the end of the first part. For the second part, I will be played as the client, and then we'll play as RCIC to make the submission. Okay, whenever you are ready, Dan.
Good afternoon, Madam Member. My name is Dan Ruimy, and I'm here today representing my client, Ms. Maria Lopez. From the evidence presented today, we believe that under Section 96 of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, Ms. Lopez should be considered a convention refugee. Section 96 states a convention refugee is a person who, by reason of a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group or political opinion. If we believe that social group, that this applies here, that she is part of a social group, and that is substantiated by one of the cases that we'll bring forward here. The case for precedence is X 2019 Canley 116880. One of the issues raised on appeal was the panel erred by failing to give consideration to the gender guidelines. The court referred to the chairperson guidelines for women refugee claimants fearing gender-related persecution. And I quote, general proposition, although gender is not specifically enumerated as one of the grounds for establishing convention refugee status, the definition of convention refugee may properly be interpreted as providing protection for women who demonstrate a well-founded fear of gender-related persecution by reason of any one of or combination of the enumerated grounds. Generally speaking, women refugee claimants may be put into four broad categories, although these categories are not mutually exclusive or exhaustive. But more specifically, women who fear persecution resulting from certain circumstances of severe discrimination on grounds of gender or acts of violence, either by public authorities at the hands of private citizens for whose actions the state is unwilling or unable to adequately protect the concerned persons. In the refugee law context, such discrimination may amount to the persecution if it leads to consequences of a substantially prejudicial nature for the claimant, and if it is imposed on account of any one or combination. In this case, the judge ruled, I find that the appellant is a member of a particular social group, that is, women who suffer domestic violence. I have found that there is inadequate state protection for the appellant. We have heard and seen evidence today of the mental and physical abuse suffered by Ms. Lopez. We have also heard of the ongoing threats of violence and even death threats to Ms. Lopez and her family. These claims are corroborated by witness affidavits that support these claims, including violent and disturbing text messages by her husband, Carlos. As a woman subjected to Ms. Lopez, as the woman subjected to domestic violence, Ms. Lopez has a well-founded fear of persecution, and there should be no disputing that she belongs to a social group. Simply put, Ms. Lopez fears for her life and that of her children if they are returned to El Salvador. We also submit that Ms. Lopez, in all good faith, has been clear, honest, and forthright in her testimony and should be considered credible. Ms. Lopez sought assistance from police on multiple occasions, but the authorities failed to investigate or even provide her with any protection. The World Report shows that there is convincing evidence that confirms violence against women is a prevailing issue in El Salvador. The country information on record shows El Salvador government would be unwilling to protect Ms. Lopez. This documentary evidence indicates that security forces are corrupted and unable to provide sufficient protection, and this is not a generalized risk, as Ms. Lopez was targeted by her own husband. Originally, it was Ms. Lopez's intention to not seek protection when she decided to come to Canada, as she had planned to go back to El Salvador with her newborn child and then reunite with her other children. Although Carlos had been sending threats at least since 2018, it was only when the hospital accidentally sent information about the new baby to her home in El Salvador in April that Ms. Lopez realized she would never be able to go back safely to El Salvador. This is why it took some time to gather the documents needed to file her claim, which caused her to file a claim for protection shortly after in June 2019. Madam Member, what we have seen and heard today clearly shows Maria Lopez is in fact a convention refugee according to Section 96 of IRPA. Maria Lopez has a well-founded fear of persecution for herself and her daughter. Maria Lopez has shown that her husband has threatened her life regardless of where she lives in the country. And finally, conditions in her home country have historically ignored and not protected women facing violence and domestic abuse. Madam Member, we respectfully ask that you find in favor of our client and grant her claim as a convention refugee. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is the end of this assignment. And this is Yichen and Dan. Thank you.